It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means. It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Yeah, baby. Fake audience, but real guest, Mr. Bobby Borg.
Thanks for having me.
How are you? He has a grip like a drummer. Yeah, grip like a drummer. I'm going to angle the camera up a little because he is tall. Okay, so Bobby has been around the block. He's like a soapbox derby racer with an engine in it. This guy, he was the drummer in the band Warrant. He's still, I mean, seriously, when the guy shakes your hand, it hurts.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm used to it. He has screened music here for, gosh, I don't know, 10 years or more, probably?
Since 2003, I think, yep.
Okay, so there you go, 11 years. He teaches at Musicians Institute. You teach at UCLA. He wrote the Musician's Handbook, which was updated again. It was going to get updated again in 2015, which has been a bestseller, and is now the proud author of his latest and greatest work, Music Marketing for the DIY Musician.
That's it, yeah.
So we are here to talk about a subject. We were just talking off camera before the show started, saying that marketing scares the crap out of people because it represents work, and they have this thing about, oh my gosh, can't I just be an artist and have somebody else do all this stuff for me? And you and I've had the discussion, 10 times before, that for idiots like us, marketing is fun.
I enjoy it myself.
The two of us are pathetic. I'm seriously, my wife reads novels, she reads history books, she's very, very, very well read. And I read marketing books for fun, and I enjoy them because most of the time it's repetitious, but you always learn that one new magical thing. Well, this book, seriously, guys, this book is scary because it's so comprehensive. I told Bobby, we met outside the men's room before, and I said to him, you could do literally 4 years of college classes on music marketing from just this book. It is that comprehensive. So why did you feel the need to write a music marketing book when there are plenty of them out there?
That's a great question. Essentially what I did is I started to notice that a lot of the material out there about marketing really emphasized how to do things right rather than how to do the right things. So what I mean by that essentially is it's all of the tools and gadgets, but it didn't get into more of the psychological aspects about what you're doing as a musician. And from everything from research to goal setting to strategizing to putting together a plan to measuring your marketing, all of those things are very essential. And I was noticing that a lot of the books out there and a lot of the resources and articles weren't addressing those kind of things.
What were they addressing? Like, make sure you have a Facebook page and make sure you post something every day, but don't make it always silly. I mean, kind of limited, basic stuff like that.
I noticed that a lot of them were talking about doing things, but again, not necessarily why you're doing them. So in essence,
the why is so important. If you understand the why, then you're driven to do it.
Exactly. So you have to understand why you're doing something. So in other words, marketing is not a one-size-fits-all philosophy. It's something that is very, very personal to each and every one of you, depending on who your target audience is, depending on who your vision is, depending on who your brand is, depending on how you want to position yourself in the marketplace. These are all really, really important things.
Ooh, that's a lot to think about. Gee,
yeah,
I'm busy writing music, and it's hard enough finding 3 to 8 hours a day. Most of the people watching the show probably have a day job. I would say probably 70% have a day job, 30% are working musicians that play gigs and weddings and teach and what have you. They cobble together a real income from doing a multitude of music-related things. What you're talking about sounds time-consuming. How do they balance the marketing work with the creative work?
Yeah, work is a 4-letter word, right?
Yes.
So, no one likes to do it. I mean, listen, don't forget that you're, myself, first and foremost, I'm an artist. And the reason why I'm here is simply because I have these same challenges as well. And to sort of make sense out of everything, I stepped aside and started to figure a lot of this stuff out, and now I'm here to kind of share it with all your, with all your.
He's a really smart businessman, but with the backwards baseball hat, he just looks like such a jamoke. He's like such a drummer, but the guy's actually quite brilliant. I mean, not you, but you look like Joe musician.
I'm just hanging out casual, right? I'm a musician.
But you are one of them. But you've crossed that line and you've discovered the joy of marketing, because it's easy to become passionate about it once you understand why.
Yes, it's important. Listen, I mean, the bottom line behind this all is that hope is not a strategy. So just creating stuff in a vacuum and throwing it out there and hoping that it's going to be successful is a little risky. In other words, you can actually be a little bit more calculated about this. I know that it takes a little bit of work, but as scary as it sounds, I was an artist that threw stuff out there as well, and it didn't work. And then finally, when I started to think about this a little bit more, now this is what's hard, is realizing that art is also a business. So if you want to throw out your music just from a creative and beautiful standpoint of creating something and just going, wow, I've created this wonderful piece of art, I'm so proud of it, that's another story.
I hope somebody appreciates it. It makes me feel good. Yeah, that's
great. But
great.
if you want to actually have something, if you want other people to reciprocate, if you want it to be used in film and TV, if you want an audience to like it, then you have to pay a little attention about what's going on in the world. And that starts to make it more work. Now, admittedly, when I came to that crossroads in my career, I almost wanted to quit. Because I started purely as an artist, practicing in your cellar for 15 hours a day. And when I realized that, it's like, wow, it's not like you just practice, you do whatever you want, you throw it out there and the world's going to love you.
Right.
That's when I realized I had to think about this a little bit more. So that book is about thinking just a little bit.
It's a lot about
being a little bit
thinking.
more calculated. So.
And it all starts with the product. I mean, to just touch on some bullet points from this book and any other marketing book, it's about the product, but it's understanding who your audience is and having a product for them, and it's about testing and measuring and trying one headline. Don't change anything in the ad but the headline and see if you get 10%. Yeah. So let's talk about the product for a minute. Let's start with defining the audience, because you can't really know. If you're somebody who just makes art, and 1 minute you're doing country, and the next minute you're doing rock, and the next minute you're doing new age, you're liable to never find an audience, because you'll be doing a little bit for everybody. And the old saying, jack of all trades, master of none. So what's your recommendation for ascertaining who you are and who your audience is? Okay.
So first of all, I think it's important that you look at this as a discovery process when you're first starting out. So in other words, a lot of us don't really know who we are, and we don't even understand what our strengths and weaknesses are. A lot of times what you have to do is you kind of have to experiment to find out who you are, which requires sometimes writing jazz and then rock and then metal to kind of figure out what you do. But eventually what you're going to start to see, if you're paying attention, is that people are responding to one thing a little bit more than others. And that should be a little bit of a clue that, well, maybe that's where your strengths are.
The 80-20 rule, remember that?
That's right.
Exactly. I did a show on that a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Most people liked it. I got some bad emails about it.
Well, it makes sense to figure ourselves out. So at first, maybe not put so much pressure on yourself to say, yeah, I'm going to be this kind of artist, to kind of experiment a little bit. But at some point you have to stand for something, or you'll surely fall for anything.
Right.
You have to have a clear path about where it is you're going to go, so that, you can sort of map the directions out of how to get there.
I gotta say, I didn't plan on interjecting this into the show, but as you guys know, Katy Perry used to be a screener here. And she reached out to me, 9 months ago, and said, hey, if you see me coming to LA, hit me up for some tickets. So my wife and I and one of our daughters and our daughter's best friend went to see Katy Perry the other night in Anaheim. Wow. Go see Katy Perry. I kid you not. The show is amazing.
Yeah.
You may not love her music, you may be too old for it, or too masculine for it, or too anything for it, but I gotta tell you, you will walk out of that show going, holy crap, what a show. Now, I was watching the whole thing. First of all, I'm looking at her just being this giant megastar on stage, going, she used to show up in jeans and a t-shirt and screen here. now look at her, and I was extremely proud. I felt like a proud dad. But she's got a brand. And that's why I'm bringing her up, is she understands her brand so well. She knows who's sitting in those seats. She does songs that are right for those people. She wears the right costumes for those people. She pushes the envelope with the sexual stuff a little bit, but not nearly as slutty, I guess, for lack of a better word, than many other artists, because she knows a lot of her fans out there are 8 years old. She had some suggestive stuff and pushed a little bit. Yeah, pushed the envelope. There was some twerking involved, but overall, it was a show for tweens to adults. But the brand, she understood her audience, and the brand was consistent throughout. And I sat there and reflected on the fact that I was on a Virgin Airlines flight over Labor Day weekend, and they've got branding down. You pick up
anything.
I'm borrowing your cup as a prop.
Sure.
You pick up a Virgin cup, and it's got their logo embossed on it. You put it down on your tray table, and that same logo is on the napkin.
That's right.
You pick up something from the seat back pocket, it's got the same logo on it. The lighting in the aisles is purple. Everything about it ties the brand together.
And it communicates a certain message.
Yeah, and so Katy Perry did that beautifully. So now if these guys have figured out who they are, because they've experimented and they've tried jazz, and we hear this from you guys all the time, our most successful members almost inevitably start out submitting country or rock or something, and then find out that they're really good at doing like hip-hop instrumental for reality shows, or something they just totally didn't expect. So they figured out their brand. How did these guys figure out their brand?
That's a really good question. And again, it involves a little bit of research. So in other words, you can actually ask, if you have any bit of a target audience or any bit of an audience, or maybe what you could do is you can try to figure out who your most likely audience would be. So in other words, the people, right, exactly. So the people that you think would most likely be your audience, you could find people on Facebook by looking at bands that maybe are artists that are similar to you, and then maybe start communicating with their audience and then start to get feedback and ask people, generally, what is it that I convey? So in other words, when I'm not in the room right now, if you were to write 3 adjectives that would describe who I am, what would those adjectives be? This sometimes could actually
Tall,
give you...
strong, and musically inclined.
That's right. And you also said something before about, having sort of a little bit of a casual demeanor. I mean, I did this myself as well when I was doing research for writing my books, and I was trying to figure out, I'm coming from the stage, from being a rock drummer that's touring around the country, and now how am I going to come off now that I'm an author? Should I come across as being, a college professor, intellectual, start wearing suits and this kind of thing? And what people liked about me was the fact that I was a former artist, and they thought that was one of my strengths because they felt that I was one of them and can communicate with them on their sort of level. So, and so I use that. The books are called The Musician's Handbook, music marketing for the DIY musician, So in essence, I discovered that my brand was essentially more, from a musician for musicians. And I think that took a little bit of research. I didn't even know really precisely what it was I was.
So who did you ask, and how many people did you ask, and how often did you ask?
That's a good question.
They're all good, Bobby. Look who's asking.
So to figure out what my brand was, and to actually speak with, the people that I spoke with was people that were representative of my audience. And of course, the way I did that is, first of all, I utilized a very, convenient audience. So I used a lot of the students, let's just say, for example, from my UCLA classes, from my Musicians Institute classes, but also I would stand out on the college campuses. And when I saw somebody that looked that were sort of fit my target demographic audience, I would say, hey, do you mind? We're conducting a survey. Can you participate in the survey, and we'll give you, this free gift.
Kiss this sucker.
Well, surprisingly, sometimes you will get that, but in many cases, you get, people that are like, sure, especially if you have somebody that's maybe, attractive or interesting, helping you out, conducting research. And you would really be surprised. I mean, Again, if we look at everything from the perspective of, oh, that's too hard or it's too difficult or I don't have time, that's going into it from a negative perspective to begin with. You have to think about this more positively.
That's
right?
most
We can make this happen though.
You know, again, most of our successful members in one form or another have done this. Almost everybody who's ever hit a chart has done this, but most people come from that negative perspective and they just think it's either laughable, embarrassing, or too much work.
Well, that's a very valid point. I think a lot of times what we do is we look at, because our art is so personal to us, and we're so sensitive about it, that automatically we get maybe a little bit offended if somebody doesn't immediately love it. Now, I know, because don't forget, I was an artist, and I'm going to keep it very clean right now, but there were times when I would cuss out A&R people, of course not face to face, behind their backs, and it would say, what the hell do they know? They couldn't even find a middle C on a piano if you threw it at them, and
I know that guy.
And I would feel insulted that I was not loved, because you're putting your heart on the table and then people, aren't giving you the time of day. I went to seminars, went up, tried to shake people's hand. They'd walk away and my hand would still be out like this and I would feel like a complete loser. And then finally, so who wants to keep on getting rejected over and over? Rejection is hard.
But you know what? It's the pathway to success.
That's true.
Failure, look at Thomas Edison. I talked about this on a show a couple of weeks ago. Consistent failure eventually leads to success.
That's right. Yeah, it does. And I mean, somebody also once said, I don't remember who it was, but one more failure is one step closer to success, or figuring out what it is you do, or to get back to what you're saying, figuring out your brand,
right,
or figuring out your audience, right? I mean, again, we have to approach this positively instead of from a negative perspective, like it's too much work or it's too hard or I'm going to be, how do you find 30 people to actually test it? Why not test it out at the road rally?
Yeah.
Coming up, right? I'm going to have an audience. My classes are always packed.
They are always packed, and people. He's another one of the. I've got 5, 6, 7 people every year at the road rally where people stop me at the elevator or the water fountain. A lot of people stop me in the men's room actually while I'm taking care of business and say, by the way, just came out of Bobby Borg's class and just want to let you know it was great.
That's awesome.
And I turn around and shake their hand.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that you're...
Totally missed the joke.
All right, let's try that again.
I turn around and shake their hand. Anyway.
That's what I thought you meant. I was going to try. Okay, got you. But I just want to make one more point along those lines is that you are all welcome to, of course, if you're at the road rally, to come into my class, bring up your CD, and we will play it, or bring up your music in whatever format it's in, and we will play it, and we'll ask the audience, which I think is pretty representative of what you guys do, and we'll ask them.
They're supportive. If nothing else, you don't have to fear being torn down because the road rally audience, for some unknown reason, is unbelievably supportive. So that's a great suggestion.
So there'll be 40, maybe 45, 50 people, maybe more, 70. I think those rooms maybe.
Yeah, some of them hold 75 to 100.
Yeah, and then we'll do it again because I have 2 classes. So you're going to get your music heard by 140 people that will all give you their honest feedback. So there's one way you could do it. We could even have you guys sit in front of the room and we'll say, all right, write down 3 adjectives to describe this person, and maybe that will give you some hints about what your brand is.
You should do that before you play the music.
Yes.
3 adjectives that describe this person. Like if I described you, I would say rough and tumble, affable, and musician-like.
Right.
And then we put on the music, and it's like, if I had a hammer, it'd be totally incongruous with what your look is. I think that would be awesome to try in the class. Describe this person, what do you think their music sounds like? And then they put it on to see if it works with them.
Yep, exactly.
Which doesn't matter so much for film and TV, but it would matter a lot if you were a performing artist.
Yeah.
Or trying to get a record.
Yeah, or just to help you figure out what it is that you do, just in general, right?
Yeah,
so let's do that, you guys. Okay, we'll come to the class. What are the classes?
What are the classes you're going to do? Class Title 1 is Power Marketing for the DIY Musician. Are you looking for a systematic approach to getting to that next level of your career? Do you want to make music that matters, music that gets heard? Well, of course they do. And class number 2 is called Get Seen, Get Heard, and Get Signed. Frustrated by doing all the right stuff and feeling like you're getting nowhere? Looking for a break in the music industry that never really seems to come? Want to get a boost of motivational, down-to-earth advice from a fellow musician who stuck it out and succeeded? there's your guy.
Yeah.
So there you go. Power
Let's do
marketing
it.
for the DIY musician. Get seen, get heard, and get signed. So I went through the book. Let's see how many of these we've already covered so far. But, dog-eared pages and highlighted stuff that I like. Talking about set your marketing plan goals by using the SMART model, SMART being an acronym. Goals should be established on realistic projections, observations, past successes, and available company resources to ensure that they are attainable or doable. Consider how well your competitors are selling, whether, well, you know what? I'm not going to just read the book. I'm going to talk about it. So talk to them about setting realistic goals, because when somebody says to me, or I ask somebody, what's your goal? I want to be a rock star.
Mm-hmm.
Great. How are you going to get there? I'm making great music.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I hear this all myself as well. So essentially, this is what we need to do. First, you have to have some sort of vision. So in other words, if you're here, you're going to get here. Let's just say, well, 5 or 7 years out. So I know that a lot of people don't like to think ahead, but in 5 or 7 years, what do you see? What is this all about? I mean, why are you guys spending your afternoon watching this? Where is it that you want to go? What gets you up in the middle of the night with pad and paper to write lyrics? What are you driven by? So what's the end result? You should be able to, not to get out the yoga mats and the incense or anything, but you should be able to,
we're in LA.
You should be able to see clearly a mental picture of where it is you want to go. So now that we have that, our 7-year or 5-year vision, we need to now break that down into more digestible steps.
Okay, what would this, let's talk 5-year vision, because our members like to talk about a 5-year plan. Give me an example of a 5-year vision that would apply to a wide swath of those guys.
Okay, I'll just give you mine. When I was 12 years old, I mean, I closed my eyes and I visualized and imagined, after practicing for years already at that time, I closed my eyes and I said, I really can imagine myself being a rock drummer, touring in a band that's signed to Atlantic Records, releasing albums, releasing merchandise, and projecting an overall brand that is encouraging and uplifting to people. In other words, creating music that is going to be really reflective of what people of my target audience was sort of going through on a day-to-day basis. And interestingly enough, that's exactly what I ended up doing several years later. I ended up being signed to Atlantic Records.
If you can't see it, you can't have it.
Yeah. So then what would be the first year goal? If you're, in other words, you're not going to go from 0 to Atlantic Records touring around the country, which a lot of people think you are, right? So the first year might be, in 1 year time, I'm going to release my 6-song debut album, tentatively titled Bobby Borg, whatever, debut album. We'll sell maybe, considering the fact that you're going to even make units, we'll say we'll sell 1,000 of these units maybe at our shows. We'll play maybe 12 or 15 local performances in clubs. We'll create merchandise, and this is pretty much how we're going to go about doing it. We'll use the internet, we'll use some face-to-face marketing, we'll use some guerrilla street marketing tactics, and we'll do that within a period of 12 months. So in other words, you're very clearly shooting towards this goal of finishing your album, mixing, mastering it, putting it out there, playing X number of shows, and selling X number of units. So it's specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's road-mapped, and it's time-based. So at any point along the way...
Hence the acronym SMART.
Yeah, right. So at any point along the way, let's just say we're 4 or 5 months into this, we can look at our plan and say, wait a minute, we said we're going to play 14 or 15 shows. We said we were going to finish this album, and we're ready 5 or 6 months into this, and we don't even have 2 songs in the can, and we haven't even played really any shows.
There's a shock.
Exactly. So you already know that you're falling behind.
And you're using the word we're. Mm-hmm. And in that context, that's like an invitation or a recipe for failure, because you're relying on other people around you. It's hard enough to motivate yourself, let alone your bandmates. Mm-hmm. And I think we've all been through the bandmate syndrome.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I say we.
Yeah, but you mean...
I say we, and I'll tell you where I'm going when I say we.
Okay.
I mean, first of all, we can take literally, and we can mean that to be a band, right? So you and 3 other people, which I can say this, 3 other pain-in-the-ass people,
right.
Because being in a band is very difficult, right?
They all are.
And I also say we to mean you as a solo artist and your your ego, your mind that's telling you that you can succeed, you can get this done. So
it's essence, in the British sense. It's like when the Queen says, "We feel like it's time to go potty." It means the Queen and herself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Got it.
It's your super ego, I guess.
So, okay, so you've got this plan, and you realize that you haven't even come close to executing steps 1 and step 2.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
What do you do? Well, there's Brian Tracy, a great salesperson, once said, if you can measure it, you can manage it. So the idea is now, how are we going to manage this? How are we going to deal with the fact that we are not getting where we want to get? So we have to reevaluate. We have to say the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. Right. So if we are doing the same things and not getting the results, then maybe what we need to change is the things that we're doing until we are getting the results that we want. And of course, if it's purely just an issue of motivation and not getting up out of your, off the couch and, putting the TV down, the clicker down and actually writing, then the only person to blame is really yourself,
And now we have this to contend with.
Yeah, right.
Everywhere we go is this. I mean, video games have dropped off in sales. Music has dropped off. Every other form of entertainment has dropped off because people sit and look at, this is the new idiot box right there. And by the way, no, this is not an iPhone 6 or a 5 or a 4. This is like a 6-year-old HTC Incredible.
You haven't bought the iPhone 6BS yet?
No. But the reason I keep this clunky old phone is because it doesn't tempt me to spend a lot of time screwing around with apps. Yeah. And I see a pathetic number of people wasting time on these things. How do you allocate the time usage and force yourself? You know what? If you're really into it and you really want this badly enough,
thank you for going there.
You don't even have to force
yourself. Thank you for going there.
You're welcome.
Because that's when you were asking that question. That's precisely where I was already thinking in my mind. Do you really want to do this? Because in essence, I always really wanted to do this. Yeah. And that could be a blessing and a curse, right? It could be obviously a curse if things don't work out for you the way you want. Then there's issues of, can you afford to pay for health insurance? Can you afford to pay for rent? Can you afford to drive a car? Can you afford to do anything, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you don't succeed in some shape or form, we're going after a risky career.
Especially if you do it until you're 50 and you're still not succeeding at it, you're screwed.
Exactly.
Unless you pick up film and TV music, but that's a whole other subject.
But if you love what you do, and I always loved what I did, then you're going to do this. So in other words, it never felt like work. Can I see that thing right over there to me? This book?
The book, yes. I thought you wanted my cheap ass
This never felt like work. Looking at this thing, it looks like, it's like, wow, it's heavy. It's a big project, but to me, I get excited about this because this means possibility. This does not mean work. This means a chance to maybe do something that you want to do.
I'm holding it up so that you buy it. Yes, I'm plugging Bobby's book because I didn't read it cover to cover, but as you can see by the dog-eared pages, I did go cover to cover looking for stuff to talk about in the show. And it is 300 and some odd pages of book right here. And you know what? You don't write 300 some odd pages of stuff. This isn't opinion. This isn't Bobby Borg, talking. It's not opinion. You research the crap out of this stuff.
Yeah,
you are handing them the keys to the kingdom. Yeah. And while everybody watching the show may not need the entire book, mm-hmm. there is something in here for everybody at every level. Yeah. And that's what's so comprehensive.
I didn't create a lot of these tools. These are tried and tested marketing, tools that have been used by the most successful companies, whether or not they knew it or not, for decades. I was very fortunate to study marketing with Professor Ira Kabb of USC, with Bianca Filippi, that was a graduate of Harvard University and a teacher at UCLA, and countless other people, where I reinterpreted these things that I learned, because I'm a student myself, of course, and always will be.
And you mentioned Richard Kotler in the book, who's
absolutely
another seminal marketing.
These are all brilliant
Northwestern, people. I think.
Yeah.
I've read his book. You mentioned Brian Tracy. You'll see 2 of his CDs sitting over there on
Excellent.
My stack.
Yeah, these are all the best of marketers, and what I did is just reinterpreted it in a way that maybe all us musicians might be able to use some of these things. And that's, you know, why I wrote the book. I saw that a lot of these tools are not being used. So
because musicians don't want to think of themselves as business people. So you talked about the vision. We got that covered. Consider this is really interesting. I've probably got 20 pages of notes on this subject for taxi alone.
Yeah, this
Consider what kind of industry you're in. The next step in creating a vision statement is to decide precisely what business you're really in. This truly creative and practical approach was developed by Theodore Levitt, Harvard Business School professor, in his important marketing paper, Marketing Myopia. Levitt argues that all companies should ask themselves the question, what business am I in? I try to answer that question about taxi all the time. Am I in the business of helping people make music? Am I in the business of helping people become successful with music? Am I in the business of helping people achieve their dreams within a range of music disciplines? And frankly, I've never been able to come up with an answer that I've stuck with. I have a range of answers, but tell them how they can figure out, because let's say that person right there is a female singer-songwriter that lives in Ohio, dabbles in film and TV music, is becoming more serious about it, goes to a local songwriter circle with friends, comes to the road rally every year, co-writes with several people. What business is she in?
Yeah, this is definitely one of the more concepts that I think are a little bit, it takes a little bit of thinking. But our good friend that wrote Margaritaville, Jimmy Buffett once said, "I am not in the music business. I am in the business of escapism." I want you guys to go to Jimmy Buffett's website right now and think of the brand escapism.
No, don't leave. Stick with the show, baby.
Hang out and see it afterwards. Think of the word escapism, and then think of everything that he has. It's unbelievable.
He's got restaurants and bars. He's got a clothing line. He's got suntan oil, private island for vacationing, right?
Glasses, shrimp, like a frozen shrimp called like Pirate's Cove. I mean, it all like fits with that brand of escapism. Now,
do you know what he did before he was a famous musician?
No, I don't actually.
Jimmy Buffett, rumor has it, now Jimmy, don't get pissed off about this, but rumor has it, because I used to live in South Florida in the late 70s, Jimmy Buffett was in the import business, the leafy import business, where leafy substances come in bales on shrimpers.
Wow.
And apparently he was quite good at that, so I think he took those business skills. Now, I could be totally wrong, Jimmy, forgive me if I am, and I'm sure it's totally legal now and got a medical card and all that, but I think he probably learned his business skills back then.
I bet, because
even to
brilliant.
to be a really good marijuana importer, you would have to have some business chops. Just saying.
But we don't advocate that.
No, not at all. I'm just saying that may be where he learned. But yeah, I mean, look at God, who's the guy that owns Cabo Wabo? Another musician.
Sammy, you mean?
Yeah, Sammy Hagar. He's another guy that recognized that he could take his brand and line extend it out to other things. He's in the same business Jimmy Buffett is in.
That's
escapism.
Right. You're right, absolutely, yeah. So really, I mean, the whole idea is maybe to think. It's to spur innovation, actually. So in other words, you're not maybe thinking so narrow-minded. It's giving you ideas about how you can take what it is you are and you can extend it. As you pointed out, we're talking about line extensions, but it's a little bit, definitely a little bit more difficult to think about. But it's something that you might want to consider thinking about.
You talked about SWOT, which conducting a SWOT analysis.
SWOT analysis.
It's another acronym. Tell them what SWOT stands for and how you execute it.
Okay, so a SWOT analysis stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. However, I kind of recreated it as an OSWT analysis: opportunities, strengths, weaknesses, and threats, in that order. So essentially what it is now that you have an idea of your vision and where it is that you want to go, you then look outside of yourself and you ask yourself, does anyone give a damn about my vision? In other words,
that may be the ultimate question.
Yeah, absolutely. In other words, who cares? Like, why should anyone care about my vision? And it really helps you to kind of think from an outside in perspective, which is really smart, because essentially what we do as musicians is we create in vacuums. We create inside ourselves and then we pump it out there and hope the world loves us. But what SWOT analysis gets you to do is think outside in. Essentially what you're going to do is you're going to think a little bit more from the outside perspective of why anyone should care, and then maybe create something, or take your vision and maybe just bend it a little bit toward maybe where the world is going, or where people might need something, or maybe where there's an unfilled need or a niche in the marketplace of something that people aren't doing. And the idea is to skate where the puck is going rather than skate where the puck is, which is the great Wayne Gretzky quote, right?
Yep.
Because I mean, listen, I was in bands, you guys, where I created what was happening now, and by the time I got good at it, it was already 10 years too old.
Yeah.
You know, and then the next thing is, now your audience might be going, ugh, but now this is starting to feel like you're manufacturing in order to succeed.
I wish people would get over that, because you know what? You can always give the public what it wants with your product. Create a product for what the public wants or needs, and still create your art for art's sake.
And it doesn't mean that you're selling out. I call it you're buying in.
Yeah. Ooh,
yeah.
I'm going to steal that from
you. Please do. Yeah.
I love that.
You definitely are not selling out. You're buying into this. And can I share a story?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I sat in my cellar writing drum books, because I thought, who wouldn't want Bobby Borg drum techniques, right? So, you know, I practiced my butt off, and I would write these really amazing books and stuff, and then I would take them over to the NAMM show, and I would go to Hal Leonard or Mel Bay, and I would say, look at this great book I wrote. And the guy turns around and he grabs George Stone's Stick Control, and then he grabbed Ted Reed's Syncopation, and he goes, Bobby, these two books, your book was written in 1957 and is still a great seller. We don't have a hole in our catalog for your Rudiment book. And I felt so shot down and rejected. The next time I wrote a book, I looked out into the marketplace, I found a hole, I wrote that book, I did not sell out, I still put my heart and art into it, and bam, there you go. It got published immediately. In fact, I had 5 contracts on my desk. Did I sell out? No, I bought in. And
I've got a great example. If I were an instrumentalist that was making instrumental cues for film and television, and I was looking for a need, an unfilled need, a niche in the marketplace that not enough people are doing, and that there's going to be an ongoing, ever-growing, ever-increasing need, I would look at the news. What do you see when you turn on the news?
Exactly.
Terrorism, 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 terrorism. Although I did ask somebody recently what they thought about the whole deal in Benghazi, and they went, Benghazi? Who's that? They had no idea what Benghazi was. So I'm not sure enough people are paying attention. But look, let's face it, the Middle East and the terrorist problems that we've got are not going away anytime soon. And they're doing, if you watch like Sunday afternoon, you know, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, any of those networks on Sunday evenings, they tend to do a lot of special reports, you know, the Benghazi incident. They need Middle Eastern music for those shows. I would become a specialist in Middle Eastern music, because there's not enough of it out there. I was with
there's a lot of new networks forming and that type of thing. Yeah.
I was with a guy named Charles Brotman, who's an old friend of mine. He's American. Well, he's a mainlander that now lives on the Big Island in Hawaii, and I see him every year at the Kauai Music Festival. Very smart, extremely capable musician. Had some stuff picked up for the movie The Descendants, which was all shot in Hawaii, and they needed Hawaiian music. He's one of the very few mainland guys, a haole I believe they call them, who makes authentic Hawaiian music that Hawaiians actually have a great deal of respect for. I said to him, why don't you start a library of Hawaiian music? And then I said, you know what, actually, line extended a little bit. Start a library of island music and call it the Island Music Catalog. If you're a music supervisor and you've got the Kardashians going to any island, are you going to call up one of the big libraries like APM? Are you going to call a specialist who does island music? So while you may not get as many placements as a giant library like APM would, because they've got this 200,000 song catalog or something, you get known as the island guy.
Exactly. Yep, and they call
Just-
you, right.
Right.
And now, you know, is that, you know, doing something horrible and selling out? And I mean, you know, you can still, I definitely say that in the chapter 1. In fact, I say this is finding a way to be successful, but never selling out your soul. Always
Yeah.
maintaining your artist integrity first and foremost.
Maybe you can find
Yeah.
the intersection of what you love to do and what the need is. That would be
Yeah, it's the
optimal.
intersection between art and commerce, essentially.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, what if you love making island music?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, exactly. So of course, that's why I will start with your vision first, because ultimately it should start with what you really want to do deep and down inside with your heart, with your art and your heart. It should start there, but then look outside and just kind of pay attention. That's essentially what it is, and hopefully, you know, you'll come over a little bit and you'll find something. You'll find something that you really do well. That fits some sort of need. And of course, what we're talking about is innovation. So I'm suggesting to all of you not just to chase what's happening now, but to be innovative and to be unique and to be different. I think ultimately that's what's going to be very, very useful.
I'm jumping way ahead in the book now. I'm up to page 129, but I made a little arrow by offer a money-back guarantee price. Anybody who's read any number of marketing books, you know what? There are two kinds of marketers. They're the Madison Avenue, I want to win an AIDA award because I did a TV commercial or a print ad that is so cutting edge and so cool
Right.
that it's just awesome, and all the other people on Madison Avenue just love me because of my ad, but it doesn't sell crap. And then people laugh at me for our outdated looking website. They laugh at me for, I'm looking to see if I have one. Our outdated brochure, which says the second best way. What happens when you read this? The second best way to get a record, publishing, or film and TV deal. What's the first thought that pops into your head? I just gave you a hint in that question. What's the first thought? Well, you got to open the cover, because if Taxi's the second best way, I want to know what the first best. And it goes right there. The best way to get signed, and that's the goal of any marketing
Yeah.
piece on the front cover. So
It's getting attention for sure.
yeah,
asking
and
a
causing
question.
them to take the next step. And the
Exactly.
last line of the first paragraph should get them to read the next paragraph,
That's it.
and so
That's
on
it.
and so forth.
Exactly.
So I am a big fan, and I know Bobby is too, of direct marketing people. You may laugh at infomercials, but how many of you out there own the hose that shrinks up, the green hose that shrinks? A lot of us do, because number one, there was a need. The need was identified. The product was made to fill the need. I hate that. I can't tell you how many times the guy who cuts our lawn has shredded our hose because there's part of it laying, just
laying in the
outside of the
lawn.
bush enough where his blade hits it.
Right.
Well, with the shrinky dinky hose, that doesn't happen anymore. So, infomercials are direct marketing, and you refer to direct marketing in the book. And there are some incredibly good direct marketing guys out there. Learn how to write a headline, learn how to write copy, because you know what? You could have the sexiest picture, you could have the best music in the world, but if you don't write a good headline, nobody's
That's
going to
right.
buy anything from
Yeah.
you. So do you want to talk a little bit about how they might apply some direct marketing techniques to their EP or
Yeah.
from the TV stuff, anything like that? You
Yeah,
can cover?
definitely. I mean, how about just to use it for writing better emails? So, for example, you might use, this is an old model, but again, tried and tested tools. It's called the AIDA model, right? So it's the AIDA model of promotion. You want to get attention.
Spell, yeah, AIDA.
AIDA. You want to get attention. You want to hold interest. You want to help your target audience make a decision, and then you want them to take action.
Right.
So an ad should have those four elements into it. And when we say ad, I mean any marketing piece. Let's just take your email. A lot of times I get an email and the subject line is just like yo or hey, or I mean your subject line right there is a perfect opportunity to draw people in and get their attention. And then of course when you finally get to the email itself, the body of the email, what is the header of that email? Is it communicating anything unique, or does it sell any type of benefit to me to make me want to care about what it is that you do,
Right.
so that I keep on reading?
Because people don't care so much about features; they care about benefits.
Absolutely.
And the phrase is, "What's in it for me?"
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And
You've
that's the
got to
difference
answer
between
that
a
with
feature
every
and
bit of
benefit.
marketing you do.
That's right. What's in it for me, meaning what's in it for the target
buyer.
audience.
Yeah,
Right.
I love screwing with our competitors. We do things like, for a while, we're sending out like 5 emails a day, and all of a sudden our competitors started sending out 5 emails a day, not realizing that you ruin your email reputation with the receiving ISP by sending out too many a day. Then we started doing stuff like, we still put all caps on just some words in the subject line because it does stick out, but you can't be obnoxious about it.
Right.
Everything we do will get
They
copied by other companies. So sometimes, just to mess with their heads, we do stuff that we know won't work, just to be jerks about it. What can I say?
Nice.
Sorry, Roy. Well, they do. They watch the show and then they just regurgitate the stuff on their own. But anyway, but they've obviously learned some real techniques from me, from Taxi, because I've read these marketing books. I've saved them the trouble.
Yeah, you are good at what you do.
Bill, thank you. But that's why you should get this book, because Bobby took the time to read all the books by Theodore Levitt and a million
God.
other guys.
Yeah, I need to go find something else to do. Right, that took 5 years of my life.
It shows.
Yeah, it's pretty
it
insane.
really does show.
I'd like to keep on, talking
for it,
about
yes.
the direct marketing and
Absolutely.
writing, the AIDA model. And I had a student the other day come to me and say, I'm a little disappointed. I'm overwhelmed with the amount of work that I have to do to get ahead in this career. I have an email list of 500 emails. I sent it out. I handed out posters. I did all the things that you're supposed to do, and only 6 people showed up to my show. Right now, he was using, I think, a service like SurveyMonkey. So I went and I said, go to your SurveyMonkey account right now. Right? He opened up his SurveyMonkey account, and it showed that only literally about 8 people opened the email. 8 people out of his 500 opened the email. So I said, let me see the email. And I go, right there's a problem.
Bad subject line for starters?
Just bad subject line. It didn't tell me why I should go. Keep in mind, we live in LA, you guys, right? Where I could go to 350 clubs tonight if I wanted to and see a band. So why am I going to go to this show? Let's just pretend, if I didn't know that person, why am I going to be drawn to go to that show?
You can't start a rumor like Lady Gaga's showing up, because you can only pull the BS routine one time.
Right,
so
exactly.
give them a real example of
Again,
what might draw them out.
The benefit. In other words, what's in it for me? So, first of all, hopefully you can find some sort of benefit in your music without sounding tacky, of course. Now, this takes some time, so I'm not just going to spit out stuff right now, but you have to think about your music. You have to think about what mood it's going to be, put people in.
Who's your audience that you're talking to in that subject?
What's
line?
important to them, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you might even talk about some of the things. What do I care about right now? If I was going to go to a club, I don't want to hassle parking. I don't want to wait in line with one of the guys with the red, thing, and I want to maybe go to a place that's going to be safe. So these are all things maybe that you can put in your marketing communication to kind of help me make a decision about going to your event.
Great tips. And you know what? You talk about something else, which I was going to get to, but I want to tie it into this, which is pricing and a guarantee. You know what? If I were that musician promoting that show of mine tonight, first of all, I would segment my list to only people. If I were an acoustic singer-songwriter, you don't want people that love hair bands. Why waste their time, or clutter their inbox? So send them an email that says something like, I'm trying to think of an example of singer-songwriter. Heartfelt singer-songwriter songs tonight at Hotel Cafe, money-back guarantee. Money-back guarantee? Who the hell puts on a show that if it's a $10 cover at the door and I don't like the show, you're going to give me my $10 back? I would open that email.
Right. Well, sure. It's unique, right?
Yeah.
And it definitely gets attention.
And it's honest. And give them back their money. You know what? Most people won't ask for it if you deliver on the goods.
I think it's basically saying to people, I am ready to put, myself on the line here.
Right.
If it's not good, I am willing. Now, of course, there's some logistics about that. Like, how is that actually going to play out? Will the club owner let you do that and that kind of stuff? But it's kind of an interesting thought.
Well, it comes
it?
out of your pocket, not the club owners. Yeah,
right.
I would literally say to people, write me a handwritten letter, which is what we ask people to do for a refund for taxi, because you can doctor an email. You can't easily doctor a handwritten letter.
Mm-hmm.
Send me a handwritten letter that says how I failed you at the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I will personally refund your $10. And people are like, oh my God, if I get 90 people out to the show, I could end up giving back, 10%. I could refund 10 people or 9 people at $10 a piece. I'd have to give back $90. Yeah, but you got 81 other people out to the show because you offered a money back guarantee,
That's right.
where you might only get 30 if you didn't.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I mean, and I think it's making a statement to people that, look, my number one goal is to
Make you happy.
Make you happy, and if I don't, then you know what, I'm willing to say here. Now, of course, there's always going to be people that are just like the con artists. Even if they enjoyed the night, they'll want their money back. But I think we have to have some hope in humanity.
Yeah, we offer, the Road Rally is the only conference on the planet that I'm aware of, at least music business conference, where we offer our sponsors their money back.
Yeah. That's awesome.
If you buy a $3,500 sponsorship to the Taxi Road Rally and you're not happy, we put it in writing for people. Give us 10 days after the rally, and we will reimburse your check.
And I bet you very few, if not any.
We've never had anybody ask for a refund.
That's right.
But I tell you what, that gets their attention because the other conferences don't do that.
Yeah. Well, you and I talked, about our fathers and our, tradition that we come from. And my father was, he was a guy that was all about, just honesty and integrity. And you don't need to, a lot of times I think the reason why a lot of the listeners right now might be uncomfortable is because marketing feels like a sale. But if you're honest, if you have amazing products, if you guys write amazing songs, then telling people about it and how it might change or affect their life is not a bad thing. Of course, there's a way to do it better than others. And there's a great quote. It says, don't show your marketing. In other words, you don't want to be overly like, call now, 999, but I mean, but essentially, I mean, if you believe in what it is that you do, and in a very friendly, non-intrusive way, you let people know about what you do, and you sell that benefit.
Well, you can't be a wussy about it either. I mean, you've got to be clear.
That's right. Sure.
And that should be the last thing in your email. If you want people to come out to the show, tell them where and when it is, how much it costs, give them the reason to go, money back guarantee, and then have a nice big button that says buy now. Mm-hmm. Buy your ticket now. You have to give people an instruction. You've probably read this book by Dr. Robert Cialdini. Red cover. I can't remember the name of the book. Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini. Cialdini.
I've got to write that one down. Actually,
it's a great book, and they did a group of college kids in a psych class did an experiment where they went in kind of a courtyard area, let's say South Boston, high-rise brick apartment buildings around, and they had a guy ostensibly molesting a woman, and the woman is yelling, "Help! Help! Help!" Nobody did anything to help her.
Whoa, really?
Then they tried it again a few nights later in a different location, very similar setup, and the woman yelled, "Help! Call 911, I'm being raped." "Help! Call 911, I'm being raped." She gave them a specific instruction. Cop cars showed up.
Wow.
Because she gave the people that she was hollering to a specific instruction.
Interesting.
So remember that. If you're ever in a car in Miami and you accidentally back into one of the flood control canals, open your window and yell, "Call 911, not help, help, help." You got to give people a specific
call to action,
yeah.
Which gets back to your direct marketing question and how people can better their posters and their emails is tell people at the very end what it is that you want them to do. It goes back to the AIDA model: attention, interest, decision,
and action.
That's it.
And you know what? Let's talk about fonts and graphics. Mm-hmm. Again, going back to the award-winning graphics guys on Madison Avenue. So let's say you're doing a show and you use very 1970 Janis Joplin-y, Jimi Hendrix looking, curly Q, wavy crap. I look at some of the stuff, marketing stuff that I see on album covers or posters for bands. I can't make out the name of the act
Yeah.
because they chose this crazy font and put it against a paisley background. How do you feel about
Well,
font choices and font sizes?
Again, it's part of your brand, right? So
Right.
here's a really good experiment that you guys could do: is go to a website called Da Font, and what you could do is actually
with a T, not
yeah, like
okay.
Da Font. You could actually, you probably have heard of this, right? You could actually type in, let's just say for example, type in Bobby Borg, and then what I can do is I can pick different fonts. And interestingly, you can see the attitude or the brand essentially change right before your eyes. Obviously, if I had Bobby Borg in a nice, pretty, like scripty font, it probably wouldn't work for my personality.
Certainly not when they shake your hand.
Impact, if you have a very impacting,
Right.
Bobby Borg. In fact, that's called impact font. It's bold, it's strong, it makes a statement.
And let's talk about the choice of color for the book.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, gold.
Yeah, and
taxi color.
Yeah. Look, Taxi was not an accident. And frankly, I'm going to pull out one of Robin Frederick's books right now. Do you know that we created like 20 different covers for this book?
Yeah, you guys did a lot of research.
And I actually went to Barnes and Noble and I took pictures until they kicked me out of the store of all the spines. Yeah, and they finally said, "Sir, you're going to have to stop doing that." And I said, "Look, I'm going to publish a book and I'm just doing a little spine, research." And they still kicked me out of the store. But this color really stuck out against everything else.
Yeah.
This color will stick out.
Yeah. That's really the really why all those choices were made.
Yeah.
Is simply, and
not
also
by accident or
kind of an
personal
interesting thing enough. Again, it's about doing research. So one of the things that I also did is like, how is this thing going to look when it's that big as a little thumbnail, which is mostly where it's going to be seen
on Amazon,
like Amazon or whatever.
Yeah.
So obviously, I
want
just
the
said,
font to be
feature
big
it.
enough that people can see it too and read it.
Yeah, so that's what you guys might think about when you're creating your artwork. Definitely make sure that your font fits who you are and conveys a certain, image in the minds of your audience. So keep in mind, you don't create your own brand. Really, the audience brands you. What you do is you create an identity, and if you do it right, they're going to perceive you in the way that you want to be perceived. So you have to think about literally everything from your fonts to your colors to your to your what you say in magazines and newspapers and how you act on stage and what charities you support and all this, what the title of your song is going to be, what the title of your album is going to be, what the title of your band is going to be. All of these things need to sort of be consistent, and if they aren't, you might want to create a separation strategy.
Let's talk about a separation strategy. Tell them what that is and how they can use it.
Okay, sure. Well, did you know that Procter & Gamble is a company that makes both Clorox bleach and also salad dressing, right? You don't want to know that, and they don't tell you. I only know that because, of course, I've researched this, and so they create a separation strategy. They create two separate brands so that you don't know that the two are the same company.
And nobody does more market testing than P&G.
Oh, well, they're brilliant. I mean, they're amazing at what they do.
They'll spend 3 years testing. After they figured out what the product is, they'll spend 3 years testing the packaging.
That's right. Oh yeah, they're brilliant at what they do. So I myself get this image that you walk in and there's this guy like stirring Clorox bleach and another guy stirring like salad dressing, going, "How you doing, Frank?" And some of it might splash. Of course, that's not the way it's made.
Well, their salads are certainly germ free.
Yeah. And they don't want us. They don't want our perception to be. To be diluted with that image, so they separate it. They don't let you know that.
They created a separate brand for each.
Now, here's an example maybe of how you can see this work in the music industry. You have 50 Cent, the 50 Cent, the rapper, and then you also have Curtis Jackson, right, the actor. Now, it's no secret that it's not 50 Cent, but maybe he's making a statement that, look, I don't want to just act in the drive-by scenes, and I don't want to just act in like the gang scenes. I want to be the principal or the basketball coach. So maybe it's making a little bit of a statement that I'd like to think you to think of me as an actor and not 50 Cent the rapper. So it's just separating those two things. Another example might be when I was in a group and, coming up, we had this image of being like, a real band and struggling for our art, and we're all hardcore and that kind of thing. But the group also was very talented in the sense that we could play jazz and we could play other forms of music. So we wanted to actually make money as a wedding band. But we didn't want our audience to think of us in suits playing Satin Doll on the weekend.
Right.
So we just played in a geographic area that was outside, so no one would ever see us.
Smart.
We called ourselves something different. We kind of kept it low key, and we kind of created a separate company or a separate brand. So that's pretty much the essence of a separation strategy. And if anything, most of you guys are going to use what's called a combined strategy. That means, your name is going to be on your products because it's going to make sense. Your company brand is going to be the same as your product brand. But anytime that these two things are different, you might want to create a separation strategy. For example, if all of a sudden you found out that, you were introducing me to your guests and you say, Bobby is a former rock drummer, he's a teacher at UCLA and teaches DIY music marketing classes, he's a screener here, and by the way, he writes romance novels. It's like, what?
Right.
It might dilute what it is I do, and your audience might go,
Everything else builds credibility and points to a vortex.
Right, exactly. So you want to be very clear about that. And anytime that's not consistent, you might want to think about maybe separating it. And that's pretty much the essence of a separation strategy.
I like it. Let's talk about how, I'm guessing that probably 50% or more of the people in the audience today, which, see, I told you it would quadruple by the time we got.
Lots of people,
Let's talk about how they can apply marketing if what they're doing is, if they're anonymous film and TV composers. And I'm not talking about somebody who's scoring a made-for-TV movie. I'm talking about people who are getting instrumental cues on, Housewives of Atlanta or Kardashians or Honey Boo Boo or whatever. What can they do marketing-wise? Is there anything they can do marketing-wise, or is marketing only for live performers?
No, marketing, really, what's in that book could be if you wanted to start a pizza place or you wanted to start a flower shop, or it's for absolutely every type of business, including the film and TV people. So, for example, let's just say, and in fact, I have friends that do just that. They sit at home and they write for different TV shows and different movies and that type of thing. What did they do? So I'll share this story. So essentially, the first thing they did is watched the show. Right? So
as hard as that may be sometimes.
Exactly. So in other words, it wasn't just let me create music and then throw it out there. Let me watch the shows. Let me watch the different TV shows let me listen to the music and listen to what kind of music is being used. And let me kind of figure out maybe, in what direction I want to go in. And then they started to create these libraries that would be, this is for the harder edge TV show, similar to this, and this. This is maybe for the more mellow romantic comedy show, like this, and this. This is for this particular, even movie directors, they had it down where they understand what sort of movie directors, maybe
gravitate towards certain types of acts. Absolutely.
So that's marketing, of course, right there. And then once you put it out there, paying attention to what people are saying about it, and then not being afraid to adjusting and making changes until obviously, it works essentially.
You could also, just like you were talking about creating brand separation, let's say that you do Hawaiian music and you do death metal, and you do them both really well, and you do flamenco guitar. You could create a nom de plume for each of those, or whatever that the equivalent would be for a musician, where you're, Jose Feliciano for the flamenco stuff. And so when your name shows up in a library catalog, you're Jose Feliciano. Other catalog owners, other library owners are going to track down, I should come up with a different name, Jose Martinez. They're going to Google Jose Martinez composer to try and find you to get stuff in their catalog. And for the metal, you could call yourself something like, I don't know, give me a metal name. You would know better than I.
Rocco.
There you go.
I don't know. Thor.
Scrotus. Which stands for the Supreme Commander of the United States, I'm sure. Whatever
nice.
name
Scrotus.
Right.
Sounds like a band. We should start a band called Scrotus.
They've got POTUS. They've got bands that wear those cod
that.
pieces with studs all over.
Sure.
Anyway, and
don't steal that name, you guys.
What was the other one? Okay, so we've got flamenco covered, we've got metal covered. What was the other one I came up with? Was another genre, let's say let's say Middle Eastern.
Okay.
So for that one, call yourself, Habibi.
And
So
so
now
you have 3 different brands under the what's
yeah,
saying. Yeah.
it's the same guy making the music, 3 different types of music, and that way nobody looks at you as, well, he does a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You've become the definitive expert, or certainly an expert in those types of music.
That's actually interesting. That's where it could apply for sure.
Yeah, and then come up, take WordPress and build a website for Habibi's Middle
each
Eastern.
one of those.
Yeah, and the
Right.
Scrotus website, that looks very metal driven in its art, in its font and everything. And then another one for the flamenco stuff, where where the main photo is a close up of finger picking on by the sound hole.
Yeah, and if you think about, let's just say, for example, a record company like Epitaph. If you look at the different brands Epitaph has under it, they have Anti, and then they also have, Hellcat, and underneath each one of these, like Hellcat would have more ska type bands, under Anti would be different bands, because they didn't want to dilute the Epitaph brand.
Right.
So that's a perfect example.
Yep.
Yeah.
Man, I love talking about this stuff. As you can see, it's like Bobby and I could do a road trip. If we drove, coast to coast together, this is all we would talk about the whole way. Let's see, we're got about a little under a half hour left. Do you guys have any questions that you would like to ask Mr. Borg? What a name. I think Michael should dress up during a rally panel as Scrotus. Did you hear about these 2 idiots over the weekend? Speaking of POTUS, the President of the United States, 2 people made it over the fence at the White House. One of the guys actually made it through the front door.
Is that insane?
He had a 4-inch pocket knife on him. I guess you could.
What's scary is what potentially could he have done?
Yeah. Boy, Secret Service is in deep doo-doo this week.
Yeah, right. That's pretty scary. Hey, if I could, can I just bring up one more topic?
Absolutely.
If I could.
Sure.
Measuring your marketing is something a lot of people don't do. And it gets back to that one story real quick that I was sharing with the student that actually, sent an email out, and he got actually only 6 people to show up to his show. And then we looked and we found out why. It was his email correspondence. So we rewrote it. And then interestingly enough, we checked it again, and he had far more people open the email the second time around, and far more people come to his show.
What did he change?
Basically, we changed the headline. It changed the benefit of why people should go to his show. It's just completely, got attention, as we pointed out, held their interest, helped them make a decision, and then, of course, ask them to take action. So, you have to, look, this is really, really hard. All of it is really, really hard. And I know, because I've done it myself over and over and over again, and literally did fail, and sometimes succeed. But, in essence, you have to pay attention for what you're doing. You just can't keep on doing the same things and expecting different results. So measuring your marketing is very, very important. It takes a little bit of time, and that's why a lot of us don't do it. But just kind of try to pay attention to what is working and what is not working. And I think ultimately that could help.
You know
Do you have
what?
any interesting questions? I think there's a lot of Scrotus fans out there.
I think so too. I may have to register Scrotus.com. Oh man, I'm just totally lost my thought. I'm sure there's a porn site named that. But,
oh my God.
Oh, measurement. Greatest way in the world to find out. People will go to the trouble of creating a new product, and they patent it, and they prototype it, and they do a first run of the product only to have it bomb. Robin Frederick and I were talking about her doing another book, and she goes, I don't know that I want to spend another year writing another book and then find out that there's no market for it. And I said, well, why don't we find out if there's a market before you write it? She said, what do you mean?
Exactly.
And that is, take Google AdWords. You can start an account for $50, $100, and spend a week reading about AdWords. Don't just be a dope and set up an account and write what you think is a great headline. Read some articles online about writing great headlines. But I said to Robin, why don't we create 5 different ads for 5 different book titles, put them all out there in rotation, and do what's called split A/B testing. Mm-hmm. And whichever title gets the most clicks on it, right? When people click on it, takes them to a page that says, thank you for your interest, join our mailing list, we'll let you know when the book is ready. And after a week and $100, you're going to know which book to write.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
That's measurement.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it took a little bit of time. I mean, don't forget, again, I'm just going to say myself, is I've done all this stuff. I've made all these mistakes, and I'm the guy that has, 850 CDs still under my bed from like when I was 18 years old, because we just went out and created something and made the CDs and couldn't sell them. Grandpa bought 100, Dad bought 50, and that's pretty much it. So
we see this with people who
that's
join
what taxi's
taxi.
great for.
Frankly, back in the old days, and thank you for saying that, but back in the old days, look, we're very close with the people at Disc Makers and CD Baby. Their CEO is a dear, dear friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And their time that we'll do cross promotion for each other because we believe in each other's companies. But frankly, customers that go to CD Baby and are all enthusiastic because they just made a new CD, we don't really want them as a taxi member yet, because they've got 10 or 12 songs, maybe it's an EP with 4 to 6 songs on it, and it's done, and they're etched in stone, and they may or may not have a home studio, and it's etched in stone. So then they start putting the square peg in the round hole. This is what I've got. Rather than taking a song start and going, I see a listing, this would be good for, I'm going to finish it this weekend. Or having a larger catalog, which you don't really need before you start Taxi, but if you've got 4 to 6 songs on an EP and you're going to join Taxi and throw those at everything, you're going to be disappointed. Well, in doing outreach calls to those people that asked for refunds because you guys don't have enough listings for what I want, what I found out was they all had that same thing in common with you, where they would invest in 1,000 copies. Mm-hmm. They had no marketing plan, no marketing budget. They spent every penny, probably more money than they had, to make the finished product. Number one, they should have sent the guitar vocals to Taxi to find out the song needed a bridge or the chorus could be better before they recorded it. Number two, whatever amount of money they were spending on the CD, they should have had 50% of that amount set aside as the marketing budget. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to drop 10 grand making a CD, have 5 grand for marketing. Oh, hell no. I'm not going to do that because I want to make my CD sound spectacular. Mm. Yeah, well, great. You can have 850 spectacular sounding CDs.
That's right.
Sitting in the garage.
You know what's interesting? There's a great quote. It says, half the money I spend on marketing or I waste on marketing. The only problem is I don't know which half. So, it's that's what measuring your marketing is all about. And
say that again. Really these tool. Guys should all hear this. This was maybe the most famous marketing statement.
It's John Wanamaker, I think, or something.
Yeah, he was one of the old school New York ad agency guys.
That's right. And he said, half the money I spend on marketing I waste. Only I don't know which half. So, so this is what the essence of measuring your marketing is. One thing I want to point out to everybody is it's interesting how a lot of musicians have the capability of sitting in their rooms, writing music, finding a recording studio, getting the musicians together, recording it, getting the artwork together, and then bam, it all stops. And like people then at that point don't know what to do. And I always find that's kind of interesting is why does it stop right there? Why does it all of a sudden become so hard? I mean, think about all of the amazing things you've accomplished
to get there,
to get to that point, and then all of a sudden it's just like, I don't know what to do anymore. Why?
Spend as much time learning marketing as you did on learning how to record yourself or how to write the music.
It's all part of the process.
Yeah. And Justin Kelly just asked, how how should one go about marketing their music online? And you know what? I hear this all the time from people. You know, I started a Twitter account, I started a Facebook account, Reverb Nation, SoundCloud, and I haven't sold squat. What are they doing wrong?
Well, I mean, let's just analyze that question, and thank you very much, by the way, for asking the question. So, I mean, in essence, I'll answer that. Let's just look at the question itself. How do I go about marketing myself online? Today, people think that the only way to market yourself is online, just because it's the most convenient and free way. But when you bake a cake, you don't bake a cake with just flour. You have to use egg. You have to use.
Have you met my wife? Just kidding, Deb. My wife is actually a really good cook. I'm only kidding. Sorry.
I don't know how to bake a cake, but I assume that there's eggs, there's cream, there's vanilla, there's
sugar.
icing,
Gotta have the sugar.
But yet everybody wants to market just with the internet, and you have to kind of think of a spice cabinet. You want to use a little bit of internet, you want to use a little bit of word of mouth, you want to use a little bit of guerrilla street marketing. So it's got to be a blend of off and online marketing,
and stay consistent with your brand everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
Notice that our cab is everywhere and everything we do.
Yeah, right there, right behind us.
It's no accident that I've got a taxi cow up there and a taxi cab over there. I know that people watch the stuff.
Yeah.
And even though we branded Robin Frederick's books as Robin Frederick and kept taxi more or less out of it, I still wanted people to know that it came from us, so the cab is on the back and the cab is over there. So for people who are fans of taxi, they know that they associate taxi with quality and integrity. They know the book is going to be a quality book and integrity.
That's right.
And the same thing with Music Pro. Nobody's going to buy this book because they go, oh, there's a new Music Pro guide, but they've bought other Music Pro guides and they trust the brand.
Yeah, exactly, sure.
Or
exactly.
they see Bobby Borg.
Yeah.
Oops, Bobby Borg, they bought the last book and they go, that was really good.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, because I mean that's I put my heart into it first and foremost, and just so that everybody knows. I mean, so you might ask, well, why the heck on a Monday afternoon are we talking about marketing for an hour and a half? I mean, essentially because as an artist, I encountered a lot of these obstacles, and there's something that feels really good about going back and figuring out how to beat all these obstacles and then sharing them with you guys. It's cathartic. It's it makes my journey more relevant, and not in vain, because now I can share them with you guys. I mean, that's really the truth behind this. I mean, writing a book like that takes 6 years of your life, and the return on investment is probably zero.
Well,
I mean,
it'll take you,
besides the fulfillment that we have right now.
I mean, eventually you'll get paid for it over a period of years.
Sure.
But it's not going to see. That's everybody wants to join taxi and have the instant. I spent $300 on taxi, therefore in the first 6 months I want to earn $300. Otherwise, I'm going to trash them online. It's the guys who do the 5-year plan that are making 10, 20, 30 grand a year that are getting it. I just saw a question.
So to answer your question, sorry, it's just think more. Whoever asked a question, think more of not necessarily just marketing yourself online. Think of it as a combination of different things, and just follow the breadcrumb trail. I mean, think about who it is that you're trying to reach, and when you reach one person, you might see someone on their Facebook that likes a similar music. Then you go to them, and then you'll see someone on that, and then you go to them, and you just keep on connecting the dots. Essentially, I think is ultimately what you want to do, if that makes any sense. And of course, keep in mind, if you guys have questions outside of this, you can ask me at the road rally, or you can email me.
Somebody just asked, are you going to sell the book at the rally, or are you going to have a bookseller's table at the
rally? I will have books available for sale at the rally, and I'm very excited about it, because maybe that's essentially what I'm really going to do, maybe the release of the book.
Awesome.
In essence, do like a release party at maybe the rally.
Cool. You have my blessing.
Yeah. I thought about it. It'd be a nice way to share that with your.
Somebody asked, I hate scrolling up because a lot of times it goes faster than I want to scroll up. But somebody asked, I have a question. What are some high leverage and perhaps unconventional marketing tactics you're seeing with the bands that are coming up today in the post Spotify, Napster, Facebook generation of artists? Ooh, complicated question.
Yeah.
So unconventional marketing tactics that you see working with bands that are coming up today.
I don't know whether or not they're unconventional, but I mean, a lot of the things that we're seeing today is that, let's get back to what we were talking about before. I didn't want to mislead people because we mentioned CDs a lot and we mentioned 1,000 units a lot. So I want to make it clear that a lot of people aren't doing that anymore. A lot of people maybe aren't releasing their music in physical form anymore, and they're just going digital, or they're just going to stream. I think it's always handy to have some physical product at your live performances, especially as a DIY artist.
Absolutely. Artists that I know that tour, even if it's two guys in a van or if it's a full band in a RV, always tell me that CD sales at the show are one of their best income streams still today. And I've heard that from Tony Van Veen, that disc makers customers say that that's their biggest sales outlet. And that it's really important to have a person at a table in the room who you identify. You have to have two people out there. One who's collecting email addresses from the audience in exchange for a wristband or a sticker or whatever. And the other thing is having somebody at the back of the room where the guy on the stage can say, and see Susie at the table back there if you want a copy of the CD.
Yeah, sure, exactly. Because, and a lot of times when you read these articles online and stuff, it's one thing, but then when you're in a van and you're traveling from city to city night after night, it's another. And I've spoken with bands that are doing just that, literally living out of their vans. And the first thing they say is, Bobby, that physical sale of that product is gas.
Yeah.
So, if you don't have that, you tell them to go home and go get it online, they're not going to do that.
No, they're going to forget about it. Yeah.
So, it's helpful. I mean, so people are releasing singles. A lot of times people are releasing video singles one at a time, spacing it out every week or every month. People are doing interesting pricing strategies. People are doing things like you said, money back guarantee pricing or donation pricing.
Right.
People are also doing a lot of cross branding. So in other words, you'll find a lot more people associating themselves with other companies and releasing themselves that way. So those are some of the more unique things that we are seeing in an age where, God, are people buying music anymore? They're just getting it for free on Spotify. So what do we do now? These are the things I see. Extending your product line, right? Finding sponsorships with people or co-branding with people I think is what we're going to see a lot more of in the future. Mm-hmm. And notice a lot of the big artists, right? What are they doing now? They're actually creating new products. They're creating, for example, when you go to a concert now, it's not just about the concert. It's showing up an hour and a half for the VIP packages.
Absolutely.
And it's insane what's happening today.
Do you think that our 14-year-old daughter is going to let us get out of the Katy Perry concert the other night without buying her some swag?
Oh, wow.
And she actually said, by the way, Gabs, if you're watching the show tonight, are you home from school? Yeah, you're home from school. If you're watching the show, just remember, when I got you those sweatpants that were $60, you said, I'll pay 40, Dad, if you'll pay 20. And I went, okay, I'm going to hold you to that. So guess who's giving me $40 when I get home from work tonight?
Nice.
Only to teach you
$60 sweatpants.
Yeah. And people were lined up 10 deep, and that was one of probably half a dozen places where you could buy Katy Perry swag.
Well, to answer that gentleman's question as well, that's another thing you could do. Make sure to create ancillary income through your merchandising products and be very, unique, and create really high quality products as well that they can sell. So it's scary to say it's not so much about necessarily the product, the music. It's about these other things, your entire brand. So,
well, you are selling a brand, but people will buy it. My daughter wanted the Katy Perry sweatpants because she was totally enthused about seeing her at the concert.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
if your music,
it's a souvenir.
And it connects her to an artist that she's into. My older daughter Hannah, who's now almost 18, for years was in love with Selena Gomez, and we had to go watch a taping of a show, and she met her, and we took a picture of her, getting a hug from Selena, and she started to cry, and Selena signed the back of her shirt. Then we drove halfway up the state of California to take her to another Selena show, where we got VIP tickets, and we got to do the meet and greet and get a shot with Selena beforehand.
Did you pay for the meet and greet?
No, it was actually a freebie because a good friend of ours was in the band or something.
Okay.
But yes, other people were paying like $150 for that.
Yeah, and sometimes like insane prices.
Yeah,
it could be.
If it were the Rolling Stones, you might pay $500 or $1,000 to get a picture of yourself with Mick Jagger. So all that stuff matters. Now, if you're playing, Hotel Cafe and you get 50 people to show up, chances are you're not going to get to charge people $50 for a meet and greet. but they are going to buy your $10 CD,
Mm-hmm.
and they're probably going to buy a T-shirt and be consistent with your branding.
Mm-hmm.
Because the T-shirt should have the same thing that the album cover does, and probably wouldn't be a bad idea to wear the outfit that you're wearing on the album cover to the show that night.
Sure, that's a great idea. Yeah,
And maybe
yeah.
have a projected image of the album cover behind you as you're playing. Tie it all
Sure.
together.
Yeah.
Let's do one more question. I keep seeing Journey Johari talking about the taxi cares. That's a whole other subject. We have a thing called Taxi Cares, and we raise money for people in need. And we have a taxi member that we adore, and he and his wife have a son who's got all kinds of. He's a Down syndrome kid who has other serious medical issues. So we did a fundraiser for the kid. And you're right. We did it. We were really on it for about a month, and then interest just dropped off. So we'll probably revive that at the Road Rally, I have a feeling. What's the marketing strategy when U2 gives away their album on iTunes? Yeah, they took a lot of crap for that, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how you look at it, obviously. I mean, U2 is a brand and Apple is a brand, and sort of U2, I don't know how it actually came together, but I mean, U2 got together with this amazing, company and came together to do this co-branded kind of thing. But the problem is I think it's a little, I'm not well read on this subject, I have to admit, but just from hearing that last night and hearing some of the talk about it, I will say that I think it's maybe a little bit presumptuous for you to just assume that like everyone that buys an iPhone cares.
Right, about them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
my 14-year-old Gabriella
maybe
probably
doesn't care.
Yeah, she knows who they are, but she doesn't know any of their songs.
So,
but you would think that Apple, because they've got the best marketing on the planet, you think that Apple probably did an intensive study as to
I wouldn't be surprised.
Everything about the demographic and psychographic of their buying audience, and U2 was right down that lane.
I wouldn't be surprised if they conducted some research and they found out that 65% of our users like U2 or something. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
And they probably,
I don't think they'd make a move like that if they didn't do some. So.
Yeah, Tim Cook couldn't be that big of a U2 fan. But they probably paid them X millions of dollars to do that. So U2 is coming out ahead because they've made the album sales before they actually sold anything.
Exactly.
It's just everybody bought through one buyer or one company. Is merchandise
before we actually close out, I definitely want to make one comment to all the listeners or watchers out there.
Yeah.
So just let me know when I can.
$100 million. Go ahead.
One thing I think want to point out when Mike was finding a question to everybody is, first of all, I appreciate all of you guys watching. I really do. It's nice to be here on the afternoon, chatting with Michael and chatting with you guys. I think the important thing is to remember sort of why we're all here. We love music first and foremost. I think all of us acknowledge in this room that having a career in the music business is difficult. So the way to kind of look at these types of seminars and classes is any little bit of good positive food that you can put into your sort of mind or your soul, or encouragement that you can take away from today is a good thing. In other words, look at all of this and all the information out there is how can you take little bits and pieces to actually get what you want and to achieve whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. And always kind of look at things from the positive perspective and try things. Not everything is going to work for you. I acknowledge that all of this is hard. You could read that book 15,000 times over and potentially, nothing will happen. On the other hand, lots of stuff could happen. So there's never any guarantees, but it's kind of a process, and you have to kind of keep on moving forward, and you have to figure out what works and what doesn't. And hopefully you guys will all find whatever successes you're looking for. So, I just try to stay away from all of the negative energy and all the haters out there, and just kind of just go out there and do what it is you want to do.
If you had one bad shot in a round of golf, would you stop playing golf? No. If you had a really bad day and shot like a 120, would you stop playing golf? Maybe for a week or two, but you'd go back. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why it is that musicians, if they hit artistic types in general. It's not just musicians. Different from athletes, but yet it's, only a small percentage will hit, just like in athletes. But with artistic types, they hit a roadblock, and that's it. For a lot of people, they just call it a day. So you're right. Don't let that one incident be the thing that stops you. That's just an incident. It's just a hurdle. It's just a roadblock.
Rejection is absolutely horrible. I mean, we all put our hearts out there with our music, and it hurts really badly when we're not accepted by that A&R guy or that music supervisor or whomever. And it's enough to crush somebody. I mean, admittedly, there were points where I wanted out. If not to sound corny, but if it wasn't for my dad, giving me a little bit of extra encouragement, I might not be here hanging out with you today talking about marketing. I mean, at one point, I literally wanted to quit. I mean, and this is after already years and hours of practice. I mean, so, you just have to keep on moving forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I was on the internet probably 8 or 9 o'clock last night, and I saw somebody with a thread going on LinkedIn where people are, don't use pay services like taxi, it's a ripoff. Who wants to pay to play? And just on and on. Right. Every other comment under this guy's post was, taxi, pay for play, blah, 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 blah. I guarantee you that if we looked at 95% of those people commenting, that none of them had ever achieved anything with their music. And not one person ever put in a link that said, hey, there is this forum on Taxi where there are tons of successful people. Mm-hmm. So you can't say Taxi doesn't work or Taxi is a ripoff. These are people who are successful using it. So those are the negative people. Those are the haters that you're talking about. And all that negative energy, I hate to sound so LA la about it, but all that negative energy, if they were using that in a positive way, that same equivalent amount of energy in a positive way,
you're right.
Maybe they would be successful.
There's a lot of angry people on the internet, for sure.
Especially when they're anonymous. Yeah.
Yes, right. They, usually the more, angry, you look at their name and it will be anonymous name, of course. But,
right.
Maybe they feel that they have to vent themselves in a certain way because they feel hurt is ultimately, I think, what happens. But to get back to the taxi thing, I mean, it's like, you can't just join us, I think you even say this on your taxi forums. You don't just do one thing and then it's like, let's join Taxi for 300 and we're going to be that's it. You
right.
have to do lots of things and you have to keep on doing it over and over again. And you have to listen to what the screeners say.
We're part of the puzzle.
I mean,
part of the cake.
Sometimes I'm screening the same stuff 3 years later. I'm like, go fix what we're telling you.
And the people who do fix it are the ones that send us back an email 6 months later going, oh my gosh, a screener made a great suggestion. I did it. I got forwarded, and I got a phone call. So there's proof.
There you go. I mean, that's the essence of research as well, right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway,
just paying attention.
I want to say thanks to you for writing this book because I'm a marketing expert, certainly an avid marketing reader and a passionate guy about marketing. And this book is incredibly impressive. And of all the music marketing books that I've read, this one is by far the most comprehensive. So you can see that you said 5 years into working on this thing?
I wish I could say that I was exaggerating.
But you're not?
No, and testing it out on my audience and getting feedback, using it in my classes and getting it right over and over again,
Well, you did a really, really, really good job. The only thing it's missing is a picture of me on the cover. in my Scrotus outfit with my metal band behind me. Anyway, there is a picture of
a band.
Yes. What did I say? The Supreme something, whatever.
Oh, that was good. You have that. We need to have a band play at the Taxi Road Rally called Scrotus.
Right. That will be the code word for all of us who watch Taxi TV this year at the Road Rally. Scrotus. All right, Bobby. Thank you, man.
Thank you. I see. I did a late one this time. Yeah.
For Bobby, that was a very feminine handshake.
Yeah.
Buy the book.
I handshake you guys too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for watching, you guys, and we will see you in just a few weeks. By the way, the Road Rally, seats at the Road Rally are selling out 40% faster than last year, which also means that the hotel is going to fill up 40% faster. That's huge, 40% in this economy faster. So last year, when it came down to like 10 days before the rally, people were clamoring to get their rooms for the road rally at the hotel.
Me too.
You want to be at the hotel. You don't want to be a block away. First of all, the neighborhood's not great. It's an airport area. It's not like you can get murdered there. What can I say? No,
You got to be careful. Anywhere.
I almost got carjacked at the Taco Bell on Century one time. I was waiting for Jaime to fly in, and luckily I kept my car running and my window rolled up, and a guy and my door locked. A guy grabbed the door handle, tried to yank the door open. He jumped over a wall. I was parked up against a wall.
Are you serious?
All of a sudden, this guy jumped over the wall, gang member looking guy, grabbed the door handle, and I just threw it in reverse and backed up. I didn't care if I hit anybody or what. Anyway, the neighborhood, I mean, it's not horrible, but it's not like you want to walk home drunk from the Raleigh Hotel. And the other thing is, the Raleigh Hotel, you meet people in the elevator. You know, you go upstairs to freshen up in between panels, or you're coming down in the morning to grab your cup of coffee or whatever.
Jam sessions on the roof by the pool.
Yes, right? So I've heard. I've never actually been to one. I did have to go to the like President's Club or whatever it's called on the 11th floor and ask everybody to break it up at 4 o'clock in the morning. The hotel security people asked me to do that.
Wow.
But stay at the Raleigh Hotel. I think it's $123, maybe $125 a night. You know, yeah, you could save $20 staying at a Motel 6 down the street, but stay at the Raleigh Hotel because, you know, for 3 nights for an extra $60, you've seen the posts on the forum. That's where people meet, is at the Raleigh bar, hanging out late, grabbing a cup of coffee and a Danish in the morning. You meet people in the line, blah, blah, blah. The elevator. Can't say enough about the elevator. The restrooms at the road rally. Just don't shake anybody's hand while they're peeing, okay? Anyway, there you go. See you at the rally November 6th through the 9th in Los Angeles. Bobby, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you again. Thanks, guys.
Great.
Thank you.
And we will see you at the road rally, and we will see you next week for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live.